Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly meeting of the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission. It is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. You might note that the chair isn't with us today. We're excusing him today. He's unable to be with us, and so I'll be acting as chair for this meeting. We'll go ahead and start with a roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Ackerman?
Here.
Commissioner Cross?
Here.
Commissioner Mesner?
Here.
Commissioner Oath?
Here.
Commissioner Ray?
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 5 commissioners present.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. That's a quorum, and we'll proceed with business. The first item on our agenda is commissioner comments, and we'll open it up to the floor for any commissioner that might have comments. Commissioner Oath.
Thank you, Commissioner Ackerman. I really just wanted to quickly note for my fellow commissioners, as well as any of the members of the public who are listening in. I'm sure that as I have noted, I'm sure the rest of the commissioners have also noted that a number of people have brought to our attention that there is a new study coming out from the Colorado School of Public Health and Colorado State University, studying and looking at the impacts of oil and gas development on air quality and noise. There's a public event about this study on Monday, where there's going to be a panel discussion by the authors of the study. And I just wanted to let you all know that I do plan to attend that on kind of on behalf of the commission, and I'm really looking forward to educating myself, learning more about the study, and having some conversations about that and the health effects of oil and gas development. So looking forward to that and appreciate the opportunity to learn more and benefit from our scientific and academic community here in Colorado. Depending on those discussions and learnings, I may or may not want to come back and have some follow-up conversations with this full commission at some time in the future, but just wanted to share that for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Oath. Something that certainly I've seen has been on my mind as well, so very much appreciate you doing that. Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to let folks know that the next Colorado Produced Water Consortium meeting will be held this Friday, and information and the agenda for that meeting is available on the Colorado Produced Water Consortium website. So if anyone's interested in listening in, there will be links available to the meeting. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner. Commissioner Cross.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to quickly note, I don't know if other commissioners have already had their one-on-ones with their new community liaisons that were hired as part of, hired as part of the cumulative impacts rulemaking. I did have mine over the last couple of weeks, meeting with both Jessica and Stephen. Just want to express to stakeholders out there that I'm happy to have them on board. I'm excited for the work they're already beginning to do. And for stakeholders, I also encourage you to take the opportunities to reach out and meet with them and talk to them, and begin the important community engagement that they are tasked with.
Thank you, Commissioner Cross. And I understand we may get to meet them in person, or at least virtually today in just a little bit. Other commissioner comments? Great, thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda. Any commission comments or deliberations on consent? Is there a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
And
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion is successful. Next, we're excited to have with us Director Murphy. She has a couple of updates and agenda items next, and we'll go ahead and start with the director's update on the data integrity investigation. Thank you, Director Murphy, for keeping us up to date on this issue.
Thank you, Chair Ackerman. Thank you, commissioners, and thanks to those who are listening in for this update. As you will recall, on November 26th, I informed you that individuals at environmental consulting firms falsified laboratory data and reports that the consultants submitted to us at ECMC. The consultants were hired by oil and gas operators, and we do not have any information that the operators were aware of the falsification. And before I really get into the substance of this update, I can't help myself from acknowledging that I continue to be disappointed by this situation and these circumstances. And I'm also glad to report out progress today. So at that prior meeting, you asked us to provide no less than quarterly updates and to provide updates when key milestones occur. Today, I'm providing you with a quarterly update. Things have happened over the last couple of months, but I didn't think that they warranted a separate update. So first, I want to talk about what we've accomplished. Second, a quick update regarding an expanded data set. And a third, an update on the simultaneous investigations that are occurring. And then, of course, fourth, I would close and welcome your feedback or questions. So I do want to reiterate that there is no action item pending today other than to identify when or you would like me to return with another update. I will plan on being back quarterly as per the earlier direction. I think that cadence continues to make sense right now. AAG Davenport is available regarding legal questions or the likelihood of matters related to this coming to you in some sort of adjudicatory or enforcement capacity. And staff, our team is continuing to investigate the matter. And it could result in enforcement, of course. So first on my list is an update with the work we've accomplished to date with the investigation. And I do want to take a moment to say I'm very proud of how our staff has handled this complex situation, and has done so with integrity, grace, and grit. It's always discouraging to see professionals behave in this way, but I think, have maintained our composure and continue to work towards the solutions necessary to correct the situation and prevent it going forward. So as you recall, on December 13th, during that update, we published the sites and maps of all impacted locations known at that time. Our immediate priority then, and continues to be today, the public safety and welfare and protecting the environment. To be clear, the data presents no new or increased risk to public welfare, safety, or the environment. However, it does mean in some instances that the duration that a spill has impacted the environment may have been extended. Our priority moving forward is ensuring that operators remediate these spills affected by the falsification as appropriate. So at the time, we identified 344 sites and we prioritized communicating with all affected parties. We've been in contact with all the impacted municipality as well as Weld County, and we're grateful for their partnership. We also sent notifications to impacted surface owners. Of the surface owners, only one has responded with a question, and our staff has addressed that question. And of the 344 sites, we are prioritizing our remediation work and investigation on the 34 closed locations within municipalities. The analysis of those situations is complex and is ongoing. So it's kind of a summary there. The second piece of my update today is that we knew in December we were likely to receive an identification of additional sites, because at the time we had received self-reported data from both Occidental and Chevron and had been notified at that point in time that Civitas was conducting their own review of their own submittals. And so since December, staff has verified an additional 9 sites from Oxy and Chevron, and we have also retained self-reported data from Civitas on their impacted sites based on their self-review. This adds roughly 46 sites that are operated by Civitas. We have integrated this data into the list and maps, and we'll publish them on our website following this meeting. And I think hopefully Kristen is able to screen share what collectively shows the scope of the investigations known to date and includes all of the known sites at this point in time. So it does look different from the map we shared with you in December. Of the 46 sites reported by Civitas, they are all in Weld County. 44 are in unincorporated Weld County. 1 is in the town of Frederick and 1 is in the town of Firestone. Just like what we committed to doing in December, we are continuing to do here with the information, with the new information and the new sites. We are contacting the county and municipalities. We are sending notifications to surface owners, and we are prioritizing the 2 sites in the municipalities. So that's summarizes my second part of the update. And taking a moment and jumping into the third piece, which is around the concurrent independent investigations regarding this issue. There are a number of components of this, and I want to focus today on those that are led by the Energy and Carbon Management Commission. As I noted in the first portion of my update, our environmental unit is leading the site-by-site quantitative investigation of the impacted sites to facilitate, getting this cleaned up in due course. That is what I described in update 1. So now I'm turning to a second investigation that we are doing internally, and that work is being led by our quality assurance quality control team, and they're looking at a holistic investigation in consultation with a third-party investigator into environmental data that is submitted to ECMC from any operator, and whether we can identify any additional incidents of data falsification that have not been self-reported. And so with that information, we hope to understand, feel more confident that we are at the nadir, have fully evaluated this issue. And I think that, any regulatory entity that oversees many thousands of data sets submitted at thousands of sites, our procedures do rely upon the assumption that submitters abide by the law and that third-party consultants and contractors stake their professional reputations on the integrity of their business practices. We continue to believe that, and as disappointing as this situation is, we continue to see quality work coming in from other contractors and other individuals. In coordination with our own internal investigations, we are also issuing a notice to operators that does set a higher standard for data that is being reported to us. We think that it's important to carry forward lessons learned from this, and this notice to operators begins that journey for us, or continues that journey. We've formalized some of these submittals over the last few months, and this is a more comprehensive step. So that concludes my prepared remarks. I would note that we have referred this matter to prosecutors and that I do not have a further update on that aspect of this matter. Currently, my plan would be to update you again in roughly 3 months, unless something warrants an earlier update. So that looks like kind of early July, depending on holiday plans and commission availability. And with that, Chair, I am concluding my remarks on this and happy to take questions, direction, and or switch gears to a much happier topic.
Thank you, Director Murphy. Appreciate that update. And as you mentioned, we've asked for quarterly updates and appreciate you coming before us. Commissioners, as you know, we've heard about this in the past, but we do have an opportunity now for any clarifications or follow-up associated with today's presentation. All right, seeing none, Director Murphy, we appreciate your update and particularly appreciate, although as you noted, a disappointing issue, appreciate the staff work being done on this and especially the eye for the future, as you talked about. Thank you. That said, as you mentioned, I think you have another topic for us that might be a little more upbeat.
Yes, and thank you, Kristen, for your work in getting us coordinated actually on both of these topics as they've really fallen under her sphere of authority. She's really helped orient us. And so now I would love to provide an update about our community liaisons. We perhaps got a little excited on the agenda, calling them environmental justice liaisons. They are really community liaisons that I think will touch closely on work with disproportionately impacted communities in particular and other communities across Colorado. So I'm thrilled to have them here. These positions help codify and establish formally the ways in which ECMC can expand upon environmental justice best practices internally as an agency and externally as we engage with community and also hold operators accountable to the rules and expectations established in your rules through community impact rulemaking and others that are particularly important in disproportionately impacted communities. As Kristen announced last month, we have filled these positions, and today I have the pleasure of formally introducing these two people to the commission in a public hearing. Stephen Arauza of Rifle, Colorado, and Jessica Chavez of Denver are our agency's first community liaisons. We recruited very thoroughly for these positions. We posted bilingual job ads and posted in nearly 20 equity, diversity, and inclusive related career sites. We were absolutely floored by the quantity and the quality of competitive candidates. And yet, Jessica and Steve really rose to the top. So as our community liaisons, Stephen and Jessica are dedicated resources for disproportionately impacted communities. In the West Slope is where Stephen is particularly focused, and on the Front Range is where Jessica will be more particularly focused. And as the rules require, they will both attend and host community meetings, connect community members with additional resources and information about commission events and complaint processes, and also monitor the quality of operators' outreach efforts to community. And so I hope, as Commissioner Cross noted, a couple of you and hopefully some of our stakeholders already know Jessica. She has been an environmental justice advocate for more than a decade, beginning as a student coordinator at Environmental Learning for Kids, where she had previously attended outreach programs as a teenager in Denver. More recently, she worked at the Keystone Policy Center and Climate Works Foundation. At Keystone, she helped facilitate wolf reintroduction stakeholder engagement meetings. So I'm highly confident she understands what it is to facilitate difficult meetings. And among her extensive volunteerism, Jessica has served as the board chair of the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Outdoor Equity Grant Program for 2 years. She won the Young Leaders Award from Environmental Learning for Kids, or ELK, as those of us familiar with the organization know it. And if I can just brag a little bit more on her, she obtained her master's in global health research from Amsterdam and was a 2024 Environmental Justice Fellow at the Yale School of the Environment. She is a native Spanish speaker, so not only is she bilingual, but she's also worked as a medical translation specialist, so she's literally well-versed in translating scientific material. More so, she's poised, professional, and engaging, and I couldn't be happier to have her working on the Front Range of Colorado in coordination with our communities and on behalf of the Energy and Carbon Management Commission. So, Jessica, thank you for joining us. And now turning to Steve. I suspect many of us already know Steve, as he's well known by the operators on the West Slope, as well as the environmental justice and other community groups. He has previously served as our environmental protection specialist, evaluating remediation efforts at oil and gas locations for the past 9 years in our organization, both on the Front Range and in the West Slope. And before that, he worked at the Texas Railroad Commission, which is Texas's oil and gas regulatory body. They're our peer in Texas. He is a vocal advocate for community engagement. Steve volunteers with Voces Unidas de las Montañas. I apologize, my Spanish accent is far from perfect. He serves as CDPHE's Environmental Justice, serves on the CDPHE Environmental Justice Advisory Board, and is an elected officer for the Colorado Workers for Innovative and New Solutions, the state's employee union. He's incredibly smart, approachable, and friendly, and he also obtained a Master of Science in Geological Science from the University of California, Santa Barbara. We are thrilled to have both of these folks on board, given the depth of their technical understanding as well as community engagement. They've only been in these roles for about a month, and they've already hit the ground running with reviewing oil and gas development plans, or OGDPs, introduction to communities, different organizations, and our commissioners. I would like to note for the public and for those listening that later in the public, ECMC will be hosting open houses to formally introduce them and their roles to community, to other organizations that are interested, and the public generally. At the meetings, we'll be soliciting two-way feedback from folks as the community relations team, and that's the team that Kristen heads up, builds our emerging external engagement plan. And so, Chair and Commission, I'm thrilled to have these folks on board. I'm thrilled to provide today's update on this topic, and I think we continue to be headed in the right direction. I hope there's more to come on this, and I want to thank you again for your time this morning, and again, thank both Steve and Jessica for trusting us with the next step in their career.
Thank you, Director Murphy. Very much appreciate that introduction. Jessica and Steve, as you know, we're very, very excited to have you both on board. Want to call an audible here real quick and give you just a couple of minutes to say hello to the audience that you'll be addressing very extensively, very shortly. Jessica, do you have any just commenting remarks to say hello?
Yeah, thank you, Chair and the Commission and Director Julie for such a warm welcome. I'm really excited to continue my work with environmental justice and with ECMC and really take everything that I've learned over the past decade and implement it not only in community engagement for ODGPs, but also continues to build that trust with community. So I'm really excited to get back into Denver, back into the Front Range, and really build those connections and strengthen this world of energy and carbon management in general. So thank you all for the warm welcome, and I am looking forward to meeting you all individually, but also really connecting with the community.
Thank you so much. And Steve, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for having us in this meeting today, to Director Murphy for making those wonderful introductions. I'm very excited to be starting this new phase of my career with the ECMC. Yesterday was actually my 10th anniversary working with this agency. I'm very honored to continue to implement our protective mission, coming from strictly an environmental protection world and expanding into environmental justice to help to implement community voices in a way that is more protective and that allows folks to have more access to the work that we do. So it's really an honor to be here, and I'm excited to get this work started.
Thank you so much to both of you. It's an honor to have you here with us today, and we're excited to have you here as well. I wanted to give any commissioners any opportunity if there's anyone that wanted to make a comment here. Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. And as noted, we're excited to have you. And good luck as we go forward. All right. Thank you. We are scheduled now for a brief break. We're running a little bit ahead of schedule, but we'll still take 5 minutes to allow staff to put together their thoughts and presentations for the upcoming Martinez-Irwin Fund request presentation. So let's go ahead and take 5 and be back here at 9:27. All right, welcome back. Again, this is the ECMC April 2nd weekly hearing. Next on our agenda, we have staff here to present to us on the Martinez-Irwin Fund request presentation. And I believe this will begin with you, Ms. Mercer-Gelman, our Deputy Director of Policy. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Lauren Mercer-Gelman, ECMC's new Deputy Director for Policy. And I'm here with you today to present 2 requests from ECMC staff for funding from the Martinez-Irwin Fund. I'm also joined by other members of staff who I may lean on to assist me in answering any questions you might have. First, I'll begin with the request for a community relations contractor. This is a request for $500,000 over 3 years in contractor support for ECMC's Community Relations Unit. The Community Relations Unit is the external communications and community engagement arm of ECMC, and they handle everything from media inquiries to core requests to community meetings and a laundry list of other things. Right now, that team is also in the process of standing up the first of its kind community liaison program to provide dedicated resources to disproportionately impacted communities in Colorado. Of course, we just met Steve and Jessica, the liaisons who are leading this effort. The community relations team is in a time of growth and transformation, and that's really what brings us here today. The unit's work has significantly increased due to ECMC's new statutory and regulatory responsibilities paired with the launch of the Community Liaison Program. And during this time of rapid growth, the Community Relations team needs additional support to ensure its continued ability to effectively communicate with the public and other stakeholders regarding matters concerning the ECMC's mission of protecting public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. So that brings us to today's request. Today, ECMC staff is asking for your support for funding to embed a contractor within the community relations team for a minimum of 20 hours per week through the end of 2027. Now, this contractor would provide support in a variety of areas, including but not limited to planning and coordinating outreach and public comment events, providing logistical assistance to the community liaisons, assisting with core communications functions like media inquiries, Quora requests, content creation, that sort of thing. And so it would be a really broad supportive role embedded in the organization to really directly help with this team's work. For that role, ECMC will work with known reputable contracts with outreach and tactical communication skills, and already have the first contractor in mind is a trusted contractor who already works with us in some capacities on communication items, so it really could be a seamless transfer. Now, we are here pursuing funds for a term-limited independent contractor, largely due to budgetary constraints and the need to ensure additional capacity through this limited time of change. So to close on this request, the project will fulfill the purpose of the Martinez-Irwin Fund by aiding ECMC in its mission to protect public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. Particularly, the addition of a communications contractor will improve the agency's ability to communicate with the public and other stakeholders about public safety and other important matters, while simultaneously increasing community engagement in the ways we discussed. So that's what I've had prepared remarks on this request. I'm happy to take any questions you may have on this request now, or I can move into ECMC staff's second funding request if the commission would prefer.
Thank you, Deputy Director Mercer-Gelman. Commissioners, any questions, comments on the first part of this presentation? Seeing none, Ms. Mercer-Gelman, it looks like we can go ahead and continue on. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the next request is related to financial assurance. In this request, ECMC staff is asking for $300,000 over 2 years to support a financial assurance auditor contractor who will work closely with the agency's quality assurance quality control team, which I might refer to as QA/QC. This project will facilitate public safety and protection of public health and the environment by helping ECMC in its obligation to ensure that all operators in the state have adequate financial assurance plans that demonstrate their capacity to perform all of their obligations under the Act and the rules. As you are all well aware, this commission overhauled ECMC's 700 series financial assurance rules in 2022. And the revised 700 series rules implement a comprehensive suite of measures intended to ensure that the state holds adequate financial assurance to ensure protection of public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. Now, these rule changes have greatly increased the responsibilities of ECMC's financial assurance team. That team is currently staffed with 1 supervisor, 1 financial assurance specialist, and 1 financial assurance assistant. These 3 individuals are responsible for tracking over 1,900 surety instruments being held for 653 individual oil and gas operators. Big responsibility for our highly qualified team of 3 folks. Relative to this request, one important aspect of the financial assurance rules is the annual review process established under Rule 707A. So to refresh folks' memory, under this rule, ECMC staff is required to conduct a review of every operator's financial assurance at least once every fiscal year to ensure that the operator is in compliance with its approved plan and continues to be eligible for the plan category that it's in. Staff is required to do this audit and then document those annual reviews in writing on ECMC's website so that the public can be informed of the results of the audit. Now, these annual reviews were slated to begin July 1st of 2023, but unfortunately, staff has not yet been able to implement this process due to staffing constraints. So this Martinez-Irwin Fund request would allow ECMC to contract with an auditor to create a system for conducting these annual audits, then conduct the required audits, which includes validating all documentation and instruments submitted by the operators, and then, of course, make the audit results available on the Commission website. This role will alleviate the demand for resources essentially associated with standing up this audit program so that ECMC can assess long-term staffing needs on a forward-looking basis. So it's really about getting us to where we need to be and having someone with the capacity to set up a good system going forward. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on this proposal as well. We also have Paige Papian, ECMC's Deputy Director for Strategic Services, and Mike Leonard, ECMC's QA/QC Manager, if there are questions that are beyond my expertise.
Thank you, Deputy Director Mercer-Gelman. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Oath.
Thanks. I think just a quick question. Do you have a sense of how long you think it will take for this position or this funding to basically get us to where we need to be?
We're looking at this as a 2-year contract, so I believe that's the hope, but I see Mr. Leonard is here to give more information.
Yeah, thank you. Mike Leonard, QA/QC Manager. Yes, the 2-year contract, the first year we'll be spending time just getting that initial review, that initial audit done. Once that's stood up, then we'll be able to assess ongoing workload.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, thank you to staff. I appreciate that presentation. Commissioners, I think we have time for any discussion or deliberations if anyone would like to make any comments. Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Martinez-Irwin Fund was set up and funds have been allocated from it based on whether or not the proposed projects before us better enable the mission of the ECMC to occur. And I think that both of these do meet that criteria. They do further the mission of the energy and carbon management to ensure protection of public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. Community engagement and community outreach, has been a topic that has been consistently brought up as really important in our processes, and improving how we outreach to community and hear from community in our processes, I think is a really important piece of what we do. And so I think that certainly is an important role, and it seems to make sense to utilize these funds for an initial allocation as ECMC continues to evaluate its staffing needs moving forward. And I think the second one is really important. And the financial assurance rules that we promulgated a number of years ago now really depend on the ability to implement those rules. And I think that due to staffing constraints, there has been significant challenges associated with implementing our financial assurance rules and ensuring that they are, in fact, working the way that it was intended in the rulemaking. And so I think that bringing on additional resources to get us to where we need to be in an expedited fashion is really important, so that we continue to maintain the financial assurance necessary to ensure that every operator in the state of Colorado has the resources available to retire their assets at the end of life. And so I think these are both good requests and do further the mission and would be in support of them.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner. Especially appreciate those comments given your historic and ongoing involvement in Martinez-Irwin Fund request presentations on behalf of the Commission. Commissioners, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I believe a motion is in order. Do we have a motion for associated with these requests?
I'm happy to make the motion. AG Davenport, I don't know if we need to make motions individually on these or if we can combine them.
I think as long as the motions are the same for approval both or for denial both, that you can make the motion together.
Okay. So I'll move approval of the Martinez-Irwin Fund request by ECMC staff as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner. Commissioner Cross, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is successful. Thank you so much. And thank you to staff for your hard work on these and for your ongoing commitment to use these funds in an appropriate manner. Okay, I believe we're Ms. Mercer-Gelman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say thank you to the Commission. These are big priorities for staff, and we are excited to move forward with the funding.
Thank you so much, Deputy Director. Okay, Commission, I believe we're prepared to move right into the next staff issue. We have docket number 250-200025. I think I missed a zero in there.
Mr. Chair,
Please go ahead.
I believe we have one more Martinez-Irwin Fund presentation from CDPHE. We have Stephanie Shoup elevated to present that request.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas, for keeping us on track. One slipped right by me. So thank you for interjecting that, and thank you for elevating Ms. Shoup. And Ms. Shoup, I certainly didn't mean to step past you. We look forward to your important presentation. Please go ahead.
Absolutely. So my name is Stephanie Shoup. I am the Office of Innovations Manager with the Air Pollution Control Division for the state of Colorado. And I'm excited to speak with you today about an opportunity that we'd like to solicit funds from the Martinez-Irwin Fund. We are looking for about $450,000 over the course of a 2 to 3 year study. We have been working with CSU and the METEC and Dan Zimmerly, Professor Dan Zimmerly up there, to design a study that would be looking at enclosed combustion devices. ECDs are what we kind of commonly call them, but enclosed combustion devices are the replacement for historic open tip flares, where you have a flame that's coming out of the top of the flare. Instead, in Colorado, on almost every situation, we require enclosed combustion devices to increase the opportunity for combustion, reduce slip, and allow for a prettier view when you're looking out across a broad area and not seeing a bunch of flames out in the middle of nowhere. And so there are kind of multiple reasons for it, but these devices have been designed to best combust emissions from a lot of different oil and gas sources, including storage tanks. That's kind of where this originated. Originally, we were requiring, back in 2008, we were requiring flaring, and then we turned around and we required enclosed combustion. And over the course of the many years, these have kind of evolved over time. One of the questions that has kind of come up again and again over the years is how to understand their control efficiency over time. And the approach the division has taken historically has been to look at and require a number of operating and maintenance requirements. So cleaning the burner rings and making sure that different pieces of equipment are replaced appropriately, making sure that they're operating within the constraints of how they have been designed, things like that. But there has been no direct correlation between those types of operation and maintenance requirements with actual control efficiency over time. And what we would like to do with this study is better understand exactly how control efficiency changes over time and whether there are mechanisms that we can employ, better monitoring that we can employ to ensure and be reassured that these enclosed combustion devices are actually working as intended. In Colorado, we require sources to utilize enclosed combustion devices that are designed to achieve at least a 98% reduction of emissions, so combusting at least 98% of the emissions going to them, and then achieve over time at least 95% combustion of emissions or reduction of emissions. And we have, I guess, spent a number of years building out these requirements. And one of the things that we added in 2021 to our regulations was a periodic stack test. A stack test is currently the only regulatory approved way to determine control efficiency. And the problem with stack tests, the benefit of stack tests are that they give us an exact number on control efficiency. The problem with stack tests is that they are pretty significant in terms of the time that it takes, and they require these operators to actually operate these in kind of abnormal conditions. They have to run them for at least an hour a piece for 3 different runs, and that's not really how oil and gas operations work. They tend to peak and then they go down and peak and then they go down. They don't operate consistently for an hour at a time. And so we would like to design a study to better understand exactly how these work in the field as they are being operated so that we can feel reassured that they are operating at 95% or above at all times. And if not, if there are additional monitoring methods that we could employ or require in our rules that would help us understand where that might be not operating as expected and allow operators, therefore, the information they need to go and repair those devices. So a number of requirements that we put into place, which I know ECMC has mirrored in a lot of ways, are auto igniters, things like that, to ensure that these ECDs are operating as expected. And we just want to confirm, I guess, through this study that what we think is happening is actually happening. And hopefully it shows us that they are, but also hopefully that it shows us maybe we have something else that we can utilize. So we expect this to take 2 to 3 years, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Schaup, for your presentation. And once again, my apologies for trying to move past. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Schaup? Seeing none, thank you. Appreciate your presentation, Ms. Schaup. Commissioners, an opportunity for deliberations on this presentation. Commissioner Cross.
Thank you, Chair. I think that this is a very important aspect to look at. I know a big part of what we have done in recent years is trying to make sure that we're not only lowering emissions, but making sure that we're protecting public health, welfare, safety, environment, and wildlife resources. And ensuring, a big part of that has been ensuring that emissions are captured, emissions are burned off. And so I think trying to make sure that the steps we have taken will continue to be successful and will continue to lower emissions as they have thus far is critical. And so I think that trying to make sure that we understand the longevity of this equipment is critical to our goal and to our legislative mandate. And so unless there's other deliberations, I would vote for approval of this request.
Thank you, Commissioner Cross. Commissioners, any other deliberations? Commissioner Cross, a motion then?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I believe that's a motion for approval, clarifying, Commissioner Cross?
Correct.
Thank you, Commissioners. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you so much, Ms. Schaup. Appreciate you being here, and your request has been approved. Okay, now I believe we're ready to continue on to docket number 250200025. That's the ECMC Class 6 primacy application public hearing. We're excited to hear more about this issue. It's something we've been talking about for quite some time and quite a bit. We're excited to have, I believe, Mr. Seeley and AAG Ben Boudreau here presenting to us. Are there other staff members that you need elevated?
Also, Mr. Mike Rigby is with us.
Oh, I see him as well. Thank you for being here, Mike. Great. Well, let's go ahead and turn it over to you. I'm not sure who's leading. I presume Mr. Seeley, but I'm not sure who's making introductory comments, but go ahead.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
and
thank you,
apologies
Mr. Thomas.
again.
Did I do it again?
We have one public commenter that signed up, and we've elevated Jan Rose to provide public comment on this application.
See what happens when you have a stand-in at chair? Wonderful. Ms. Rose, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Please, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Before you submit this application for Class 6 primacy, I want to reiterate what I've said since the legislation was passed last year. There are only 4 Class 6 wells in the nation run by ADM in Illinois and Indiana. They were put into production, or I should say injection, less than a decade ago, and were found to be leaking in March of 2024, 8 years after injection began. Nobody was notified, not the local commission, not the EPA, nobody was notified until August. The EPA then was notified in September, went out and did some additional investigation and found a second leak directly under the sole source of drinking water for the population of Decatur, Illinois. This is a failed technology to date. I want to point out to the commission that the state of South Dakota has banned the running of carbon pipelines through its state due to abuses of eminent domain. That's the taking of farmer and rancher property for private profit. You can't run Class 6 injection wells in Colorado without running pipelines to get the product to the well. Carbon dioxide cannot be trucked in. And in the case of Illinois, they are injecting approximately 5,000 feet under the aquifer, which is roughly the same depth that you are recommending our carbon dioxide be stored. Only you're recommending that it be stored in active fracking fields where existing fractures in the rock are already in place for tens of thousands of wells. And you earlier in this meeting indicated that the operators are not being honest about their spills and their cleanup processes. So I would say we have an endemic problem here that you are about to perpetuate. Lastly, I want to point out that there is bipartisan legislation moving through Congress that will repeal the 45Q tax credit. The 45Q tax credit is used to pay for carbon pipelines and Class 6 injection wells. Last week, we lost the federal orphaned well funding. So the ECMC was just shorted about $25 million in promised funds to clean up once again another industry mess. If you lose 45Q funding, you will have wasted the taxpayers of Colorado's time and money by chasing the biggest greenwashing campaign in the history of the fossil fuel industry. Please make it stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose, and well done keeping an eye on the time. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate your comments here today and for you taking time to come and provide them to us. Thank you so much. Okay, now I think, Mr. Thomas, I'm okay to move forward, and just a little bit of background here. We did have conversation about this issue previously, and part of that conversation resulted in us asking staff to come back forward and present to us on our potential expertise to move forward in obtaining primacy and operating these wells in order to be able to make a determination as to whether or not we believe we can do so in a safe and effective manner. So, Mr. Seeley, I believe, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Ekman. I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, excellent. Again, thank you, Chair Ackerman, and good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for having me. My name is Mark Seeley, and I'm the Geothermal and CCUS Supervisor with the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission. I'd just like to take this opportunity again to thank everyone who has contributed to the state's efforts in pursuing primacy over Class 6 UIC wells. It's been a multi-year endeavor, as everybody knows. This includes our stakeholders, our partners at various Colorado agencies, and many external professionals from other state CCS or UIC programs. And a special thank you goes out to our internal ECMC staff, whose great work has been important in this endeavor. Specifically, I want to express my gratitude to our new Deputy Director of Policy, Lauren Mercer-Gelman, Ben Boudreau from our AG office, as well as internal staff, specifically Mike Rigby, Kat Campbell, Marie Horner, and Alex Axe, whose contribution in putting this application together have just been essential. Thank you for all your hard work and commitment in moving this application forward. As mentioned, today's presentation is a follow-up to our February 19th presentation, where we shared the draft Class 6 primacy application for public review and comment. I'll cover the public input we received, which was minimal, and I'll also provide an overview of our resources for administering a Class 6 program and why we believe that we're well positioned and prepared to receive Class 6 primacy. Many of you familiar with the timeline of the state's primacy work leading up to today. To quickly recap, this effort began in 2021 and involved work groups, reports, legislation, and collaboration with stakeholders, culminating in the Class 6 rulemaking last year. The next step to obtain regulatory authority is submitting our primacy application to the EPA and securing its approval. Today marks one of the final steps in that process. The draft primacy application has been made available for public review and comment, and now we're ready to finalize it and submit it to the EPA. Prior to submitting the application, the Commission is required under SB 2316 to affirm that the state has the necessary resources to safely and effectively regulate Class 6 wells. To meet this requirement, ECMC has outlined 3 critical resources that demonstrate our preparedness. Number 1, staffing and expertise, which I'll discuss about in more detail, as well as financial resources. For number 3, data infrastructure and technology, I'll talk about that here. ECMC, we're really going to leverage our existing database systems, tools, our existing forms and mapping and reporting, and other essential program functions. So we feel we have sufficient resources in the data infrastructure and technology avenue to administer the Class 6 program. Transitioning to the staffing and expertise. So ECMC has the staff and expertise needed, and these are 8 key areas that the EPA has identified to effectively regulate Class 6 wells. These areas include site characterization, so understanding the geologic, hydrologic, and engineering conditions, among others, of a site is crucial to determine its suitability for CO2 injection and to ensure the protection of underground sources of drinking water. Modeling, so reservoir subsurface modeling, modeling the subsurface behavior of CO2 helps predict its movement, defines the geologic area of review, and ensures the injected CO2 remains securely contained within the approved permit area. ECMC can also leverage external contractors with specialized expertise in this area if the modeling complexities exceed our in-house capabilities. Well construction and testing, so proper design, construction, and testing of wells are critical to prevent leaks and ensure the integrity of the well over the long term. Finance experts are essential for evaluating the financial assurance across the main areas required for Class 6 wells. Those are corrective action, injection well plugging, emergency remedial response, and post-injection site care and site closure. Risk analysts help identify and mitigate potential hazards. and the likelihood, chance of occurrence, such as CO2 leakage or potential impacts to USTWs, ensuring the program's operations are safe and compliant. It also plays an important role in determining the appropriate level of financial assurance needed to address the potential risks and cover the costs of mitigation or remediation activities. And again, this is one area where, if necessary, we can leverage external contractors with advanced expertise, again, if needed. And then finally, moving along, policy and regulatory experts. These help ensure that our activities align with federal and state laws and that our regulations are kept up to date in the future should things change. Enforcement and compliance. Ongoing enforcement and compliance efforts are needed to monitor operators and ensure that the operations meet regulatory requirements to protect public safety and the environment. And then finally, inspectors. Inspectors are needed to conduct site visits, verify compliance, and ensure that all operational and safety protocols are being followed. Our ability to successfully administer a Class 6 program starts with having the right kind of organizational structure in place. I'll first walk through the broader ECMC structure to show the technical teams and staffing that will support this work. Then I'll focus on the energy transition team, which will lead the Class 6 program with support from the rest of the organization. So the chart on the left shows the broader ECMC organization, and I'd like to highlight specifically the operations division, which we expect to have the most interactions with. And as you can tell, that's where the engineering, environmental, planning and permitting, enforcement, compliance, et cetera, resides. In total, there are roughly 138 full-time employees assigned to these technical teams. But in total, there's about 194 available across our entire organization. So I just hope this structure reflects kind of the depth of expertise and number of full-time employees that we have to fulfill kind of the capacity needed to administer a Class 6 program effectively. And the chart on the right, as I mentioned, shows the energy transition team that will lead the Class 6 program, supported by a team-based approach from the broader organization. I'll highlight that we currently have 2 to 3 full-time staff dedicated to CCUS with the flexibility to draw on 2 to 3 additional part-time staff as needed. This staffing level is consistent with other states that currently have primacy. As an example, Louisiana has the largest Class 6 team with 7 full-time employees, but they also have the most pending permits with around 80, definitely leading the nation in that regard. North Dakota was the first state to obtain primacy and has the most active projects. They manage their program with 3 full-time staff. Wyoming has had primacy for several years and currently has 2 full-time staff managing several projects. However, I'll note that they are looking for 1 to 2 more full-time staff to take them to 3 to 4 total. So in conclusion, we believe our staffing levels position us to efficiently handle the Class 6 permitting and oversight and are in line with successful models from other states. Moving to financial resources, our intention is to leverage initially the EPA federal grant that we received last year. We've been allocated $1.9 million from the EPA to build and administer our Class 6 program. That grant is not frozen. We are able to draw from it today. This funding will primarily be used to grow our staff and cover most program costs over the next couple of years. There is also the potential for additional future federal support, similar to the ongoing programmatic funding that we receive yearly for our Class 2 program. And then secondly, the Energy and Carbon Management Fund. This fund, which is supported annually by the Conservation Levy and other sources, contribute approximately $18 million to the ECMC's total $32.5 million budget in 23-24. This stable funding source allows ECMC to sustain the Class 6 program, will allow the ECMC to sustain the Class 6 program over the long term. And we believe these funding streams, effectively allow ECMC to administer the Class 6 program both now and into the future. Moving forward, next steps from here, our draft primacy application has been made available for public review and comment, and that 30-day comment window is closed. I would say that we did not receive any formal written comments. We did receive requests for the presentation, but did not receive any formal written comments. So as a result, the draft application has really undergone minimal changes, mostly formatting adjustments and minor corrections. I had a bit in here. If we received comments during this public hearing, then we would address those and incorporate it. Looking ahead, here's the anticipated review timeline. I just met with EPA last week and got further guidance from them. So they're currently estimating that EPA Region 8, which is where our primacy application will go to first, and is the agency that we've been working with the closest throughout this process, will take about 2 to 3 months, hopefully on the shorter time frame since we've already been working with them. Then it will go to the EPA headquarters for review, which will take about 3 to 4 months. And then there's about 1 to 3 months of part of the federal comment public participation process, as well as if and when the application is approved, there's a 30-day window before it takes effect, essentially. And so all in all, we're looking at 7 to 9 months from when we submit our application and it's deemed final from when we expect to receive approval. So working in that timeline, that puts us towards the end of this year, towards the beginning of next year, as when we expect to receive primacy, which has been consistent with the messaging that we've been communicating to stakeholders and other external parties throughout this process. So with that, I just like to thank you again for your attention and your effort through all of this, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. And we can go ahead and take the screen share down if you would, please.
Will do.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate your work and your presentation on this issue. Commissioners, we have an opportunity for any questions at this time. Great, seeing none. Thank you to staff for the presentation. Commission, we have an opportunity to deliberate. As a reminder, we asked staff to come back and give us a more formal presentation on our capability as an agency to handle Class 6 wells. I believe this presentation did that, so we have an opportunity to deliberate on that and potentially consider a motion as well. Anyone wish to kick off deliberations? Commissioner Ray, thank you for being here. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Ackerman, and I want to thank staff for the presentation and also appreciated the public comment this morning related to this application. I'll note that both Colorado's Greenhouse Gas Pollution Reduction Roadmap and Colorado's Carbon Management Roadmap emphasize that carbon sequestration is a complement to, not a substitute for, direct emissions reductions. The state is actively reducing emissions through expanding renewable energy generation, electrifying transportation and residential, commercial, and industrial energy use. And so we see this not as a replacement for those direct emissions reductions, which are essential, but as a complement to those and ultimately necessary to meet net zero targets. As we've heard, federal law requires that Colorado's Class 6 rules be no less stringent than the federal rules. And I want to note that state law requires additional protections that go beyond federal requirements. And so in my opinion, I believe the state's Class 6 rules are among the most protective in the nation, and believe that we are well positioned to regulate these activities in Colorado in a way that reflects Colorado's priorities and values. Finally, I want to note that the department is pursuing additional authority from the state legislature this session to create a long-term monitoring and stewardship enterprise for Class 6 facilities. That proposal, although it's not necessary to receive primacy, would create additional protections for public health and welfare and would be funded by fees on industry. So just in sum, I want to thank the ECMC staff who have worked tirelessly for years to ready the state to take on this regulatory responsibility. And I encourage my fellow commissioners to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ray, for your comments and for all your work on this issue as well. Other commissioners? Commissioner Messner.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. No deliberative comments, but just a question. What what are we making the motion on? I guess what's the action item here? Because it's a little confusing for me on that.
Thank you. And I'm not absolutely positive a motion is warranted here. I'm sure the chair would be if he were here, but perhaps AAG Boudreau can help us on that issue, or perhaps AAG Davenport.
Thank you, Commissioner Ackerman, Commissioner Messner. So pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 3460-1069C, the commission can seek Class 6 injection well primacy after it determines that the commission has the necessary resources to administer the program. So what staff is requesting today is a finding by the commission that after a public hearing, which we're doing now, that the commission make a finding that ECMC has the resources necessary to administer the Class 6 program as described in the Class 6 application.
Thank you, AAG Boudreau. And again, this question is either for you or for AAG Davenport. Would that finding be appropriate in a motion, or would it just require a general finding by the commission?
I'll defer to AAG Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, AG Boudreau. Commissioners, I'd recommend a motion that the commission adopt a finding that the agency as a whole, ECMC, has the resources necessary to, and Mr. Boudreau, AG Boudreau, remind me the exact wording, the resources necessary to do what?
To administer the Class 6 program as described in the Class 6 application.
Okay. So a motion, and I think given the previous discussion, if the commission is interested, a commissioner could say so moved at this point, and we could proceed from there.
So moved.
Thank you, AAG Boudreau. And we have a motion by Commissioner Messner.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Cross. Thank you so much. Commissioners, any further deliberation on this issue? Commissioner Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation today. I just want to highlight, as part of this motion, I do think that we have, as demonstrated, we have an incredible set of staff here that has the resources and the ability and knowledge base with which to run this Class 6 primacy. And I think that, consistent with what Commissioner Ray said, I think that this is complementary to all the additional work that we're doing as part of our efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to reduce VOCs, and protect the public health. And I think that anything we can do in addition is always going to be beneficial. I know there's still a lot of questions about the efficacy of carbon capture, but even if it is only partially helpful, I still think that the work being done is nothing but beneficial. And so I will be in favor of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Cross. Any further deliberative comments? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion before us. All in favor of the motion as articulated by AAG Boudreau and AAG Davenport and forwarded by Commissioner Messner, seconded by Commissioner Cross, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion is successful. Thank you to staff for your significant and ongoing work on this issue. We look forward to further updates and further movement on this issue. Commission, we're running about an hour ahead of schedule. Why don't we go ahead and take a bit of a break? Let's take 7 minutes and come back for our next issue at 10:20. That's docket number 240600148, an oil and gas development plan by Crestone Peak Resources. 10:20. All right, we are back. This is the ECMC Commission hearing for April 2nd, 2025. And next on our agenda is docket number 240600148 and OGDP by Crestone Peak Resources. And AAG Davenport, I see you visualized yourself. Do you have some comments?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do have some comments for the commission. As you just noted, Mr. Chair, the next matter up for consideration is the State La Plata South OGDP. This is the first of Crestone's OGDPs in the Lowry Ranch cap that the commission approved last year, excuse me. Before the commission hears that, I have a request or recommendation that the commission go into executive session to discuss a few matters and receive legal advice. But before we get to that, I'd like to briefly recap what's happened since the commission approved the cap and the reason for the executive session, so that the commission and the public understands why I'm making the suggestion or recommendation I am. As you know, the commission approved the Lowry Ranch cap in the summer of 2024. As you also know, the cap is subject to judicial review action. There were, as you recall, two protestants in the cap matter. The commission dismissed one of those protestants, a mineral owner, prior to hearing the merits of the cap. The plaintiff in that judicial review action is that mineral owner who is claiming that they were improperly dismissed from the hearing on the cap. I would note that in the judicial review action, there is no actual challenge to the cap itself. The issue is whether the plaintiff was improperly dismissed from the hearing, or put differently, whether the commission properly dismissed the plaintiff from the hearing. In January, on the plaintiff's request, the court stayed the effect of the commission's order approving the cap. And for clarity's sake, that is not a decision by the court that the commission erred in approving the cap. As I said, the cap itself has not been challenged. It's also not a decision by the court that the commission erred in dismissing the plaintiff. The court has not made decisions on any merits in this case yet. The court's order does mean, however, that the cap is not in effect while the judicial review action is pending. And that brings us to this week. On Monday, plaintiff's counsel sent an email to ECMC hearing staff, counsel at Crestone, and to me, raising process issues with the commission's review of the La Plata South OGDP. The plaintiff is not a party to this OGDP matter, but as plaintiff's email raised issues involving the judicial review action and this OGDP, I thought an executive session would be appropriate. So that concludes my sort of opening remarks intended for public session. At this point, if the commission is interested in an executive session, I can read my script and we can actually have a motion. Should I proceed with my script, Mr. Chair?
Thank you, AAG Davenport. Yes, I believe an executive session is warranted. Absent any objection from the commission, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, pursuant to Colorado Open Meetings Law, the commission is entitled to enter into an executive session at this regularly scheduled meeting. I would note that the executive session is on the agenda for today. The purpose of that executive session would be to receive legal advice and analysis on issues presented within the judicial review action of the commission's approval of the Lowry Ranch cap, as well as the state La Plata South OGDP that's on your docket for consideration today. And Mr. Chair, we now need a motion to enter into that executive session.
Thank you, AAG Davenport. I'm happy to make that motion to enter into executive session. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. We will go ahead and be in executive session. It is now 10:25. We don't know exactly how long that executive session will take. Why don't we plan on coupling that with lunch, and we'll plan on being back here at 11:30. Thank you, everyone. We are returning from executive session. This is the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission hearing on April 2nd, 2025. And I believe, Councilor Davenport, that we need some help coming back in from executive session.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'll have my standard script. The commission did just meet in an executive session to receive legal advice and analysis on the Maverick v. ECMC, Crestone, and Star judicial review matter, as well as the state La Plata South OGDP. The commission did not make any decisions, did not take any votes, and did not deliberate in the course of that executive session. Mr. Chair, I'd ask or encourage a motion to exit executive session, and then after that motion, I have a few brief comments to make, if that's okay.
Thank you, Councilor. I make a motion to return from executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are now reconvened, and as per your request, Counselor, invite you to make some comments. Again, we're talking about docket number 240600148, Crestone Peak Resources, La Plata South OGDP.
Yes, that's correct, Chair. Thank you for clarifying or stating the docket number. I appreciate that. As I stated before, the Commissioner went into executive session. The plaintiff in the judicial review action, where the plaintiff is claiming it was improperly dismissed from the Lowry Cap hearing, has raised some process issues with the Commission's consideration of the State La Plata South OGDP today. Again, while the cap has not been challenged, this court's stay order does mean the cap is not in effect. I think the question before the Commission is whether and how to address any process issues before considering the OGDP, State La Plata South OGDP. The couple of things I want to note. The first is that that's the only OGDP in front of the Commission today. And so your decision is in regard to that OGDP and that OGDP only. And also, I just want to offer that I'm happy to continue to update the Commission in hearing as to any developments within that judicial review action. If you think that would be helpful, I can't really promise activity in that judicial review action on any particular schedule, but I can commit any developments. I'll update the Commission.
Thank you, Councillor Davenport, and appreciate those thoughts. So, Commission, I think there's time for deliberation now on some of this issue that's been raised before us on the appropriateness of moving forward with this OGDP at this time, or potentially staying it for a future time. I certainly have some thoughts, but want to open this up to anyone else that would like to lead in those deliberations. Thank you, Commissioner Messner. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I appreciate the chance to provide some thoughts. I think it's really important for this commission to abide by the law and follow the rules of the judge. And if the judge has issued a stay on this particular piece, I think it's important that we actively abide by that. I do think that the OGDP that's in front of us is uniquely challenging from the state perspective because, as AG Davenport indicated, the state has created a situation where the cap is not to be in effect, and so it cannot be contemplated as part of a OGDP review process. And we have to make a decision as if the cap never existed. And the OGDP in front of us is preliminarily cited, which has that necessarily ties it to the cap because of the preliminary citing aspect of it. And so I do think that there's some challenges with that and the stay that's placed before the cap, particularly. And these are just some examples, but the ALA requirements, the cumulative impacts plan, the wildlife mitigation plan, the infrastructure plans, the access road plans are all kind of taken into consideration in that preliminary siting piece that's integrated with that cap review. And so, that to me, that is potentially problematic. And I do think that there's some value to getting some guidance from the court on what exactly the aspects of the stay and how we are to apply that in our review processes moving forward, could be helpful in that clarity and guidance. I think would benefit both the applicant and ECMC as we ensure that we're abiding by the court's stay requirement. But those are just some of my initial thoughts.
Thank you for leading that off, Commissioner Messner. Commissioner Cross, I see your hand as well. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with Commissioner Messner that I think it's appropriate for us to seek some guidance from the court. I think there are inherently, we don't need a cap to move forward on OGDP. So I don't know that there's necessarily this puts an impossibility of this OGDP moving forward, but I think that's why it's important for us to get some kind of guidance from the court as to how and if we can move forward with this OGDP. Given that, as Commissioner Messner indicated, there is obviously some references to the cap in the application itself. I do think it's appropriate to hear from the applicant as well, to hear their thoughts on this. So I would ask if we could elevate the applicant's counsel on this, but my initial thought is some kind of guidance would be appropriate from the court as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Cross. Any other thoughts? Okay, well, I'll provide a couple of thoughts. I think it sounds like we're on a similar page here. I do think it's important to emphasize that the cap itself hasn't been challenged, as was mentioned earlier by Councillor Davenport. But there's a related procedural issue associated with the judicial review of a specific action that was taken by this commission during the cap hearing as it relates to the specific OGDP application. So I would just remind us that after a rigorous review and public hearing process, our commission voted in the summer, this past summer, to approve the cap. And the cap is a holistic landscape level consultative process for planning and permitting locations for the production of oil and natural gas in Colorado. By design, it precedes related OGDPs. And as Commissioner Cross stated, of course, operators still have to get subsequent approval from ECMC for each proposed drilling location within the cap. I would agree. We're a regulatory body and we're subject to judicial review. And even though this judicial review isn't specific to whether or not the decision on the cap was valid, it does put a stay out there. And as such, we take, at least I take, adherence to court orders seriously. And I do believe it's appropriate to get at least further direction from the court on this issue prior to further action on this OGDP. Any further comments? I see that Ms. Jost has been elevated. I would agree with Commissioner Cross that as the applicant, it certainly makes sense to hear from her as she is representing Crestone. So Ms. Jost, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Chair. And we would love to speak on this. So thank you for the opportunity to address this. We believe this is a little out of order for purposes of an OGDP, specifically where the cap stay did not impact the OGDP. So I'm just going to make a few comments on record, Chair, just for purposes of not only ensuring we have this on record, but also opening myself up to any questions that the commissioners may have on this. First off, the stay was issued in January 29th, 2025 on the Lowry Ranch cap only. It clearly does not say oil and gas development plans, and there will likely be no guidance from the court on this. The reason for that is because during testimony at 2 hearings in front of the court, Crestone, ECMC, and Maverick all agreed that the cap stay order would not impact future OGDPs and the progression of those OGDPs. So that's point number 1. Secondarily is that State La Plata OGDP was noticed on December 23rd, 2024. It was a month before the stay. At no point during this progression of the application did the ECMC or staff or even Maverick, frankly, ask us and Crestone to modify the application with respect to the stay or to otherwise consider staying or otherwise holding any OGDPs, specifically the State La Plata OGDP, because of the stay order. None of that was ever brought up by the staff. None of that was ever brought up by Maverick. For Maverick's claim that they only found out about this hearing on Monday, they have known about this hearing since the December 23rd, 2024 publication on the ECMC website through the ECMC filing system, and specifically publication of that notice of hearing in not only the Denver Daily Journal as well as the Aurora Sentinel. More specifically, the OGDP was part of the district court proceedings that was testified to by Crestone that this hearing would be proceeding on April 2nd. Maverick acknowledged that. Maverick continued to acknowledge that OGDPs would not be held up. Maverick did not protest this application. Maverick did not provide public comment on this application. And more importantly, the Maverick lands that are outside of the now stayed Lowry Ranch Cap area are nowhere close to the state La Plata OGDP. From the position that this should be continued for any reason under the Lowry Ranch Cap stay order from the court, Crestone has two reasons, at least to put on record for purposes of how this can actually proceed today. The first of which is under Rule 307A, where it says the commission can consider the director's recommendation, quote, as appropriate. If the commission doesn't feel it's appropriate to consider the director's recommendation, given the specific facts tied to the cap, then the commission does have the ability to use its own authority to conduct an evaluation analysis on the information presented not only today, but with other specific information that's already in the state La Plata OGDP filings. Secondarily, under 307B, the commission has, and you guys have said this numerous times, independent authority to determine OGDPs under your own analysis and review. Given the stay of the cap and Crestone and ECMC's basically moving forward with this until right now, we believe that the commission can review the information under the state La Plata Oil and Gas Development Plan, as well as the information provided today that will provide a full-scale review of the OGDP and ALA requirements under 303, 304, and 305. From the perspective of Crestone specifically for making the record, Crestone is not and will not be relying upon the Lowry Ranch Cap order in any way to present its testimony, I would say, on the OGDP application to you. This has been communicated to Maverick as well as the ECMC. The only references that Crestone has utilized for purposes of its presentation is one, was to use a demonstrative example as to where the state La Plata OGDP was within the cap boundary, again, recognizing the cap order is stayed and no longer applicable. But secondarily, that it was without hesitation continuing to voluntarily apply to conditions of approvals regarding electrification and pipeline to the state La Plata OGDP that are otherwise not applicable right now because the cap has stayed. So those would be the only two references to something you heard in the cap hearing, but they're not in reliance upon those. Those are voluntarily applied for purposes of this OGDP. So from our standpoint, I mean, Crestone respectfully requests that you really hear and consider hearing the state La Plata OGDP today, because you do have the ability to do so under 307B, and you also have the ability to hear from Crestone and its witnesses today. Just to wrap this up, the Lowry Ranch cap stay of the court does not and cannot impact oil and gas development plans. If there are concerns about any of those plans that tie to or reference the cap, because this was noticed well before the stay, Crestone would absolutely agree to a voluntary COA to go back and modify or otherwise amend those Form 2A and 2B references to the cap to delete those. That won't change the protection of the public health, safety, welfare, and environment for the state La Plata OGDP, and it won't change anything with respect to the alternative location analysis that was conducted on this location. So from our view, this can proceed forward today, and we would have great concerns over any continuance or any stay of this OGDP based upon a non-party and a non-petitioner to this specific OGDP. Chair, thank you so much for letting me make the record on that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jost, and appreciate your comments. Brief moment for any questions that any commissioners have of Ms. Jost. Okay, thank you. Thank you for appearing before us, Ms. Jost, and for making the points of Crestone clear.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Commission. So before us remains the same discussion and decision points. I'll go ahead and take a little liberty to lead off here that I do recognize the comments made by Ms. Jost and the points made by Crestone. I do believe that the point remains that given there's an allegation that moving forward violates the stay, I think from my perspective, and I tend to be cautious, is it makes sense to get direction from the court on the potential violation of the stay or not. Again, I take court orders seriously and want to make sure that we're in compliance with those court orders. And so I wanted to let you know that I'm leaning that way and open it up for any further discussion from other commissioners. Commissioner Oath.
Thank you. I think my thoughts are largely in alignment with what you just stated, Mr. Chair. I would kind of reiterate what has been noted previously, that really the only decision before us right now is how to proceed with this particular OGDP. We have, a plaintiff from the judicial action objecting to us continuing with the hearing. We heard from the applicant their arguments for why we should proceed or how to proceed. Nevertheless, I am in agreement that, out of an abundance of caution, and without, making any type of opinion about whether or not the objections raised by the plaintiff in the judicial action are valid or not, agree that it is appropriate for us, for this body, to pursue through our counsel some guidance from the court on how to handle this hearing and stay in compliance with the court's order.
Thank you, Commissioner Oath. Comments from other commissioners? Commissioner Cross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do appreciate the comments raised by applicants' counsel here, especially with respect to the latent nature in which this topic was raised. I think this is not the first time in applications where we've sort of at the 11th hour had some of these issues raised, and I do have concerns with that, especially if it comes from counsel. I think this is something that should be kind of in their purview and something they should be aware of and ready to make an argument on earlier than just days before a hearing is just set to take place. That said, while I recognize our ability to, consider the director's recommendation as we choose, and to take things up on our own volition, I think that it is appropriate to seek guidance from the court here. I do think that the fact that as the application currently stands, there are still references to the cap. I do think it's appropriate to look to the court to make sure, out of an abundance of caution, that we are not violating any stay order. So I again think that it's appropriate to seek guidance.
Thank you, Commissioner Cross. Anything further? All right, thank you. I think we've reached a point where we're probably ready for a motion. Anybody willing to make a motion? I'll go ahead and Commissioner Messner, please go ahead.
Go ahead, I'll second.
All right, thank you. I would make a motion that we stay this application, and AAG Davenport, I would make sure that this is appropriate, but my motion would be to stay this application pending clarification on this procedural issue from the court.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you were requesting guidance from me or...
I was, yes, thank you. Making sure that's an appropriate motion.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's appropriate. I generally just clarify that the stay, would apply to just this OGDP and the hearing on this OGDP. That's the motion. It's the first point of clarification.
Agreed.
The second is, as I understand it, the motion is essentially direction to me as your attorney to petition the court to see if we can get in front of the court for and obtain some guidance on the issues raised by the plaintiff in the judicial review action. And that's what we will attempt to do should the commission approve the motion. I want to clarify that I can't guarantee how the court will react to that motion. So I think the motion should acknowledge that any response from the court may say, no, thanks, I don't want to have that hearing. In which case that would sort of end our attempt to get guidance from the court as well. And so just to be clear that the stay is pending a response from the court to our attempt to get guidance.
Acknowledged in the motion. Thank you for that clarification. And Commissioner Cross, I saw you shaking your head. Did Councillor Davenport address the issue that you we're thinking of?
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to make sure that we provided direction to our AAGs to seek that clarification.
Okay, great. Well, if that is clear, then I amend the motion as discussed by Councillor Monahan. It's Councillor Davenport, excuse me, previous life.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say, any further deliberation? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. I do realize and recognize that there are several here that have prepared to provide comments, and we appreciate and we welcome their efforts on that front. Wanted to speak to you directly and let you know that given that the commission has stayed this application, that the appropriate time to hear those comments will be if and when this application comes back before us. So thank you for spending your time in this hearing, and we look forward to your comments at a future time. That said, commissioners, we did not end up taking a lunch during the executive session. I think it's probably appropriate to do so. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. Does 12:30, reconvening at 12:30 give you enough time? All right, we'll go ahead and be back at 12:30. Thanks. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission weekly hearing on April 2nd, 2025. We have two more items left on our agenda today. The first is docket number 2409-00233, an oil and gas development plan in Rio Blanco County by TEP Rocky Mountain LLC. I think we've got the appropriate folks elevated. Mr. Jewell, do we have everyone elevated that you need elevated?
Thank you, Commissioner Ackerman. I do believe we have Mr. Kirtland and Mr. Tankersley. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Then perhaps AAG Davenport can assist us in swearing in the witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Morning, Mr. Jewell. And witnesses, I will ask you to raise your hand, state your name, and swear that you tell the truth. Mr. Kirtland.
Good afternoon, Jeff Kirtland. I do swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Tankersley.
Adam Tankersley, I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davenport, and appreciate you being here and appearing before us today. Mr. Jewell, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to you and commissioners. Michael Jewell with Jewell Jamerson Natural Resources Law. On behalf of TEP Rocky Mountain LLC, again, proud to be the largest, most innovative operator in the Piceance Basin. TEP is always grateful for your time and consideration, as now it seems we've elbowed out of our collective way from the major rulemakings of SB 19181. I think it's safe to say that now. I hope it is. I know you've all worked hard to get to that end, so thank you very much for working with us there. And with this Black Sulphur Creek OGDP, docket number 2409-00233, TEP is back to a more traditional drilling presentation before you. Our last few OGDPs addressed UIC development and introduced our EFRAC fleet. This is our largest yet, at least to my recollection, but with, I think, the fewest public health, safety, welfare, environment, and wildlife issues to consider, at least in proportion. Though, as always, we carefully spotlight those for your further and thorough review. So after the review of lands and general operations set up by me with public health review, Mr. Kirtland, the regulatory manager of TEP, will go into details of our plan of development, and also Mr. Adam Tankersley, the planning manager, as customary, will go through the details of the wildlife arrangements we have with CPW and your ECMC staff. And of course, we'll go into any questions and comments you may have on the presentation. And we want to thank staff, especially Ginger Malashauskas, because with our permitting questions, I think we have some really good specificity lined up here in the Piceance Basin, and none of this gets approved without their thorough resolve. And for the first time, we have Mr. Smelts processing this OGDP for us. So thank you for that timely processing here. So for the record, we are here with 2409-00233. TEP formally requests the ECMC approve an order pursuant to Rule 303 and Rule 503G1 for an approximate 484.07 acre oil and gas development plan for the development of 41 new directional wells from 2 new locations. While the lands are more precisely detailed in your materials and in our application, They are largely situated on Township 2 South, Range 97 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, Sections 18 and 19, and Township 2 South, Range 98 of the 6th, Sections 23 and 24. They're a few miles from each other, but the same nearest crossroads for both: Black Sulphur Creek Road, CR 26, and Peons Creek Road, CR 5, and Rio Blanco, just in case you're driving out that way, but for the benefit of the public. And as you're used to my saying from time to time, the externalities are always important, and we address those with paramount concern. But if you're going to choose where to have oil and gas development, rangeland might be the better starting point, and this is indeed where we are located. And 100% federal BLM rangeland, in this case, zoned agriculture by Rio Blanco County. We're approximately 21 miles southwest of Meeker. So addressing those two locations, the first being the federal RG 3223-298. It will house 24 of those 41 directional wells, has about 8.19 acres of new disturbance, but it will roll back to 1.72, so about 21% of its total initial disturbance, 0.32 of those being access roads. So the entire disturbance that will be attributable to that pad, so the pad, pipeline, roads, about 26 acres, but once that's all reclaimed, be about 4 acres total, so 15.86% of that total disturbance will be left over. So proud of that efficiency number. The second, the federal RG 1119-297, will be home to 17 of those new directional wells we are proposing. 6.69 acres of new disturbance, a little smaller, but only 1.69 will remain after interim reclamation, so right at 25%. About a half mile of access roads, and about 13% of its total disturbance of 36 acres, so about 4.9 remaining will be left. And fulfilling our commitment that we made in the produced water rulemaking, we indicated to you that we will continue our recycled water commitments. And that is true. We're going to keep to that near 100 or 100% commitment, because from this OGDP, the produced water will utilize the Northeast, Ryan Gulch, Pitchers Mount, and Motts Creek facilities and multi-well pad. Rio Blanco County is the relevant local government, and no other municipalities are in play here. There are no high occupancy building units, schools, or childcare facilities within a mile for either pad. We're 5,224 feet from the nearest RBU for the federal RG 1119-297, and over a mile for the federal RG 3223-298. We are located within a DIC, as most of the peons is, yet that calculation is in flux based on the current EnviroScreen for Rio Blanco County. TEP has committed to several BMPs to minimize and mitigate potential impacts of public health, safety, and welfare, some of which include electrifying the production facility, use of water and bentonite-based drilling fluid mud, stormwater control maintenance, utilizing pipelines for water transport to MLVTs, site lighting management downward and inward to reduce glare, promote good neighborliness with wildlife, and the use of our EFRAC fleet. The RG 1119-297 is not within a sensitive area for water resources. The nearest constructed water well is about 4,100 feet northeast, and surface waters of the state are 920 feet to the east and 2,640 feet northwest of the pad. The other pad, the RG 3223-298, is not within a sensitive area for water resources either. Nearest constructed water well is 2,241 feet southeast, and nearest surface waters of the state is located 2,292 feet to the southeast, and that's the Black Sulphur Creek namesake, a perennial stream. Significant stormwater BMPs are attached to our application. That includes diversion ditches, earthen berms, traps, and wattles, as you would expect for the area of the state in which we are located. As for wildlife, the proposed location is within high priority habitat for mule deer migration corridor and mule deer severe winter range. So TEP engaged with CPW in pre-application consultation. CPW supported a waiver to 304B2B8 on September 6, 2024. I'll leave that timeline of details to our expert, Mr. Tankersley, but suffice to say, the waiver was granted because it seemed clear to CPW and ECMC staff That the waiver is more protective and beneficial than the ALA process for these HPH situations and also led to significant direct and indirect mitigation fees. So to wrap up my end, we would not bring an OGDP to you that was not 100% rule compliant, at least from our vantage point, and we spelled out the details in our plan of development that runs alongside forms 2A, B, and C. And importantly for all, this application comes to you without protest or petition, formal or informal, calls to our offices, for instance, and included a strong statement from the director's recommendation. So enough from me. I'll hand it over to Mr. Kirtland.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell, and good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for your attention today. And we are excited to once again discuss our continuing development in the Ryan Gulch area, which, as stated, is in remote Rio Blanco County. I'll just take a minute to reinforce some of the information that Mr. Jewell shared and outlined, as outlined in our, as well as what's outlined in our application and submitted forms. As Mr. Jewell indicated, there are two new locations: the RG 1119 297 and RG 3223 298. They are on federal surface, drilling into federal minerals. But what's most important is that these are strategically planned in proximity to our existing produced water recycling infrastructure. This approach really minimizes our additional surface disturbance by utilizing an existing pad in the RG 4118 297 for completion operations, which is described in each of the plain language plans of development documents that are included with each Form 2A. I know you all appreciate that document, and I hope you continue to find value in that. As outlined in that document, for this project, completions from the RG 4118 will involve our electric frac fleet, or EFRAC, which is an enhanced, fully encapsulated closed-loop completions process that utilizes 100% recycled produced water and is powered by 100% electricity generated with field gas on location. As a reminder, we shared in our previous OGDP hearing a presentation around this EFRAC, but want to just reemphasize that this technology is powered by generating electricity from field gas in lieu of diesel fuel, which we estimate reduces NOx emissions and overall CO2e. Plus, it eliminates a lot of the particulate matter from the stimulation process, including eliminating trucking diesel fuel to the locations, which further reduces impacts to air resources, impacts to county roads and wildlife. In total, we estimate the carbon intensity of generating power directly with the field gas is as high as 26% less carbon intensive than if we were to tie in to the regional power infrastructure, which is unavailable on large swaths of federal land and is powered by about 30 to 40% coal-fired generation. So we believe these enhancements are critical innovations that are protective of the environment, wildlife, and air resources. And so I just wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about why it's important that we're in close proximity to tying into our infrastructure to allow us to really recycle water and utilize this new technology, as we've discussed. To that end, again, wanted to be brief, but I will turn over the presentation to Mr. Tankersley, who really will provide the majority of our details around the project timing, our planning efforts, the ALA waiver, and the wildlife considerations, which I think are most critical for this application. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Tankersley.
Thank you, Mr. Kirtland, and thank you to the commission for your time today. As mentioned, this development oil and gas development plan includes two oil and gas locations: the RG 1119 297 and the RG 3223 298. From a development timing standpoint, nothing has changed from what was submitted underneath the application. We still intend to develop in September of 2025 with drilling and completions operations, ranging from September of 2026 through December of 2027. The RG 1119 297 would be reclaimed in September of 2027, and reclamation of the RG 3223 298 would be in May of 2028. Specifically for the RG 1119 297 pad, this location is within Mule Deer Severe Winter Range and the migration corridor. For the proposed access road, pipeline corridors, and power line right-of-ways, those are located also within Severe Winter Range and the migration corridor for Mule Deer. The pipeline south of the 1119 297 pad also crosses through aquatic sportfish management waters. And through the consultation process with CPW, we have agreed to bore Black Sulphur Creek to avoid impacts to aquatic wildlife within that creek. As part of our planning process, we go through an alternate location analysis process, which in this case resulted in CPW granting a ALA waiver for this project. The ALA was specifically targeted to identify potential wildlife impacts for this location as well as the alternatives. That alternate location analysis reviewed 4 alternate locations, 3 of which are existing pads. The first one is the existing federal 298.13.1 pad. On this location, we would only be able to develop 6 wells associated with this project, and it would ultimately result in the need for an additional location, a brand new location for the development of the remaining minerals. Similar thing for alternative 2, although 1 additional well would be able to be developed from that location, which is the existing Boys B19N pad. The existing Freedom Unit 62S 97 West pad is another existing oil and gas location operated by another company in this area. We did consider that as a potential option as well, but it is located within mule deer winter concentration and would reduce the overall well count to 11 wells and would also require a new location for the development of the remaining minerals. Alternative 4 was a new location east of the 1119-297 pad. It would be located within mule deer winter concentration, severe winter range, as well as a migration corridor as well. So that one appeared to be more elevated in overall impacts to mule deer. So that one was eliminated from the selection process as well. That location would also result in more new service disturbance as it relates to construction of pipeline corridors and access roads to get to that location. Through the consultation process, we discussed compensatory mitigation and have agreed to pay $110,174.23 for mitigation for mule deer. $34,177 of that would be tied to a seasonal TL be associated with winter operations if winter operations are to occur within that TL. And that TL runs from December 1 through April 30th annually. And as part of the process, we also review best management practices with CPW just to make sure that everything from a development standpoint aligns with best management practices for wildlife resources, including stormwater controls and time limitations as well, that sort of thing. The RG 3223-298 pad is also located within high priority habitat for mule deer. It's located within mule deer migration corridor, and the water pipeline south of the location is going to be located partially within aquatic native species conservation waters. In this case, we are not crossing Black Sulphur Creek with a pipeline. The tie-in is just north of the creek within the buffer. For this project, we also looked at 2 alternate locations, both of which are existing. The government 23-1 pad was the first one that we looked at, which would allow for the development of 15 of the proposed wells. Again, in this case, a new location would still be needed for the development of the remaining minerals. And then for alternative 2, which is the existing Boys C23O pad, this would also reduce the overall well count to 16 wells. And this location would be located within aquatic native species conservation waters, right adjacent to Black Sulphur Creek. And furthermore on that, that one would also require a new location to be developed for the remaining minerals. Specifically for compensatory mitigation for this project, we have agreed to pay $70,064.10 for offset mitigations for direct and indirect impacts to mule deer. And again, for this project, we are implementing best management practices such as stormwater control measures and other measures to ensure that we're protecting wildlife resources in this area. And with that, I'll hand it back to Mr. Jewell.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, team. And Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'll turn it back over to you as we have nothing else further.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell, and thank you to Mr. Kirkland and Mr. Tankersley. Commission, now's an opportunity to ask any questions you may have of the operator. Commissioner Messner.
Yeah, Commissioner Ackerman, I'm going to ask some wildlife questions, but if you want to start off with the wildlife stuff, I'm happy to let you lead and then follow up. I don't know if you had questions or not.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner. I do have a couple, but I'm happy to let you go first if you'd like to, and I can. Why don't I jump in then?
Mm-hmm.
Great. On this one, it was just a little unclear to me as far as the timing limitations. So, there's in the application, it says that that TEP will avoid high intensity activities, drilling and completions and construction during that timing limitation period, December 1 to April 30. And then, as noted during the presentation, there was a budget item for compensatory mitigation for $34,177.50 for the potential to drill during that timing limitation. The materials from CPW seem to indicate that you will need to conduct drilling and completions during that severe winter range timing limitation. And so I need a little more clarification on the certainty of that, is there a commitment to avoid, and I understand the intent is to not have multiple occupations, and you have worked closely with CPW and BLM on this issue, but I'm just a little unclear as to what the actual plan is going forward.
Yeah, I can take that. Thank you for the question, Commissioner Ackerman. There is a timing limitation associated with the RG 1119-297 pad. It runs from December 1 through April 30th. That's specifically tied to mule deer. And through discussions with CPW, we are committing to avoiding construction activities during that period of time. But drilling and completions operations will need to occur during that period of time to some extent. As it currently sits on the schedule, we will be operating through those winter months, and that's where the seasonal TL fee comes into play. We likely will need to pay that additional $34,000 for mitigation for that period of time.
And thank you for that clarification. I do find it a little conflicting then that in the application itself, it states that you will avoid those activities during that time period, and that there would be a follow-up with BLM and CPW. And so I just wanted to flag that for future applications, that changing that language, I think, would be appropriate if you know that the intent is to drill during that time period or complete any of those activities during that time period, and the appropriate coordination has taken place with CPW and BLM. So I'm not asking for action on this one, though. Thank you. That's really all I had. Excuse me. So Commissioner Messner, certainly turn it to you if you have any follow-up.
Sure. And my questions are going to be along the same lines. I mean, the BMP that's being proposed here is really, we won't adhere to the timing stipulations. We are going to have activities through the timing stipulations, and we'll pay to do that. And so I find it a little misleading, which is unusual for this applicant, because typically they're pretty straightforward in their applications. But it was a little frustrating for me to see what I understood as high intensity activities being avoided, with the potential for some less intensive activities feeding into the timing stipulation. And the application talked about that to some extent, but now we're at construction outside the timing stipulation, but other high intensity activities like completion activities are anticipated to be in those timing stipulations. And so I don't know. I guess I'm a little frustrated with both CPW and the applicant on this one, because the timing stipulations are the timing stipulations, because to my understanding, the CPW, who's the wildlife expert, has determined that, one-time impacts associated with these sensitive areas, can be impactful, particularly in areas where there is, less intense activities. And so I'm struggling a little bit with, how this is appropriately applying the mitigation hierarchy if it's really not first attempting to avoid, but rather going straight to minimization and mitigation. And so I'm not sure how to resolve that. And, I guess the question that I have in all of this is, why are we starting in September, first of all, if we know that it's going to take a certain amount of time? And I mean, is there flexibility? And then maybe talk to me a little bit about the benefit of one occupation that will go clear through the timing stipulation or well into it with intense activities versus having two occupations that do truly avoid those high priority habitats by properly adhering to the timing stipulations.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner, and by extension, Commissioner Ackerman. I want to start. I can't really answer the operational concerns per se. I'll leave that to either Adam or Jeff. But I'll fall on the sword a little bit as to the transparency bit. I think I can answer that with a bit of a compliment, actually, and it won't fully satisfy your concern, but I think it'll help make sense. I was happy to see this application make it to hearing so quickly. I think it's day 182, which is about 60, 65 days faster than the track we've been on for some time. The application as written, sir, was accurate upon submission, so there's no issue there as far as honesty and whatnot. So had this been on regular trajectory, I think we would have seen that and would have either written amendment or had, corrected that way ahead of time. But this got on the docket so quickly, it's like, oh, well, we'll explain it at hearing as we're having this discussion right now. So there's certainly no, attempt to be anything less than transparent to you. And so we're happy to keep that discussion moving forward, at least as far as the application meets the hearing. I want you to know that, at least from me. But as far as the operational questions go, why we're starting at, date certain versus not, I'll leave that to Adam or Jeff as most appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Kirtland or Mr. Tankersley? Mr. Tankersley.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. From an operational standpoint, there is a need to have some flexibility in timing. We're striving to maintain a continuous single rig operation, which requires year-round drilling operations. And just based off of the timing associated with that, this location or both of these locations would be developed within that period of time. And it's difficult to bake in flexibility up front or certainty up front about timing because there's a lot of unknowns. But that's why through consultation with CPW and the commitment to having continuous operations through that period of time by starting operations ahead of the TL effectively minimizes overall impacts to wildlife resources. Starting operations inside the TL, like say January, February, during the peak of the winter season, creates more stress on mule deer, big game in the area, and the commitment to starting operations prior to the TL and with continuous operations going through the winter season just provides the opportunity for wildlife to relocate and avoids impacts later in the winter season. So hopefully that answers your question.
So that was one question. Talk to me about, why it's better, in your opinion, to have one occupation that goes clear through a timing stipulation versus two occupations that may properly avoid that timing stipulation, and whether that's purely an operational decision or whether that's a decision that's based on minimizing impacts associated with wildlife.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Really, it comes down to the level of stress you're going to be adding onto wildlife in that particular area from two occupations. And CPW has found that a single occupation, whether that's going through the TL period over winter or not, ultimately minimizes the impact to wildlife through multiple occupations, right? So that's really the driving factor around this single visit with flexibility to operate through the winter.
Even though those occupations would be outside the timing stipulation, so arguably the wildlife concerns, particularly in winter concentration areas, wouldn't be there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's if you commit to developing outside the TL, there's obviously less of an impact overall from operations because you're outside the TL, outside of the winter months. But you're still having an impact on wildlife to some extent. Animals move into that area, then get pushed out through development activities. It's still occurring, right? It's just not within the TL period, but in this case, the direction here is to have the flexibility to develop through the winter months and maintain that continuous drilling program. And then we understand that we're going to have potentially higher impacts through those types of operations, and that's why the additional seasonal mitigation fee is necessary. And we've been providing that on multiple applications, previously.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. I still have heartburn with the pay to play kind of concept in these situations too, in order to be able to facilitate operational considerations. But I'll continue to think about this, and certainly CPW has provided some thoughts that they're comfortable with the situation, but I'm still trying to reconcile that in my brain. But thanks for answering my question.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner. And if I may interject one follow-up associated with that same concept, my understand is that you would also have to apply for and get a BLM exception to the winter timing range stipulation. I just wanted to get an update on the progress of that. And from your perspective, does our approval or reluctance at this time impact that discussion with BLM?
Yeah, so currently we are still going through the NEPA process with BLM. That application has not yet been approved. There will be a condition of approval on that approval once approved to submit a TL exception request in the event that operations are scheduled to occur during this period of time. BLM would need to approve that TL exception request prior to our operations beginning, and they have the discretion to evaluate seasonal conditions, if it's a harsh winter, that sort of thing, or expected to be a harsh winter, they can certainly deny that request, and we would ultimately have to adjust our schedule accordingly. But you are correct, a winter TL exception would be required to conduct operations during winter months.
Thank you. Appreciate that update. Commissioners, any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we appreciate your presentation. We'll go ahead and unpanel the applicants here and begin deliberations. Commissioners, anyone wish to begin deliberations? I think it might be appropriate that I jump in here with your permission. And I appreciate Commissioner Messner's thoughts on this. It sounds like he and I had similar thought processes as we reviewed this application. As a reminder to the public, we don't communicate on these applications that are open, and so we come into these hearings without a lot of knowledge of what our fellow commissioners' thoughts are on these applications. Sounds like we were pretty similar. I also had some heartburn with this application, appearing that it was representing that there was avoidance, complete avoidance, as far as the heavy activities of construction, drilling, and completion during the timing range, the winter timing stipulations. And then I felt like I had to dig a little bit to find that wasn't indeed the case. And like Commissioner Messner, that was frustrating for me. I did come down pretty heavily on the side of CPW's continued work with TEP. They coordinate very closely and did on this application as well. And with this also being a BLM property, and as was intimated at the end of this discussion, having to go a full NEPA process, I have some confidence in those two processes and some confidence in CPW being okay with that. I do appreciate Commissioner Messner's thoughts on one occupation versus two occupations outside of the timing limitations. This is a very long and broad discussion that's been going on in the conservation community for quite some time. It's my opinion that generally one occupation is better than two, even though that occupation might go through the winter timing stipulations. I also have an issue with any appearance of pay to play for operational convenience. And so I pondered that as well. And I know that TEP, does employ a continuous drill rig, and the great majority of TEP operations are within some type of HPH with timing limitations. And so I would consider it's likely that if this schedule was altered, that would be the transfer of this discussion to potentially another HPH that may also have timing restrictions. And so once again, I lean pretty heavily on CPW here. I know that they did bring up some issues associated with this application, including the modification to drill under Black Sulphur Creek. And so I know that they do raise issues when they think that that better things can be done for wildlife. That said, the CPW review left this with no further issues or concerns for this proposed OGDP. And so that said, I'll support this going forward. Any other deliberative thoughts, Commissioner Messner?
Thanks, Commissioner Ackerman, for your thoughts. I think I bring this up in this application primarily because I feel like sometimes we get on slippery slopes. And so, I think that this applicant in particular has often, had exceptional applications, and some of them did include some activities, include timing stipulations, and I think at one point those were relatively rare, and I think I see them becoming more common. I acknowledge the close work that we see happen between this operator and CPW. I also see a slippery slope as far as some of the pay to play items, and so I guess I will always fall to the opinion of CPW, who's our wildlife expert, because I'm not an expert enough to be able to have a different opinion than what's being presented by CPW. And so I will be voting in support of this, but I do want to highlight that this is starting to feel like a slippery slope to me, and that I think we have to continue to be paying attention, that we continue to follow the rules that were promulgated during the mission change rulemaking that do clearly indicate that pay to play is not an option in these situations, that avoidance still has to be the first element in the mitigation hierarchy and needs to be contemplated as applications are being submitted, consultations are occurring, and planning is happening prior to the submittal of applications. And so to me, that's the point that I want to get across here today. So thank you.
Great points. Thank you, Commissioner Messner. Other commissioners? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval of the application.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. A motion by Commissioner Cross, second by Commissioner Messner. Further deliberation? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is successful. I hope Mr. Jewell and the team that the message that we've conveyed today has gotten through, and continued efforts to prioritize avoidance during the wintertime stipulations will continue to occur in your operational procedures. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the discussion. See you in a second.
Great, thank you so much. And unless, Mr. Jewell, you're in need of a break before we move into the next one, I believe you're representative of docket number 2209-00247 as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I think we are ready to go if you and your commissioners are ready to go as well.
Thank you. Why don't we proceed? And we'll go ahead and start with that. Again, it's docket number 2209-00247 in Garfield County, an oil and gas development plan by TEP named the Arco Deep 127. Go ahead,
Sure.
Mr.
Well, thank you very much. We'll try to keep this one brief as well. But again, Michael Jewell, Jewell Jimerson Natural Resources Law, on behalf of TEP Rocky Mountain LLC. And again, this is a docket number that might seem familiar to you. It's an older 22 moniker there. So to refresh your recollection, this is the Arco Deep OGDP. We're requesting an expansion of an existing oil and gas location to support the operations that you have already approved. Specifically, the Puckett MV1-23 pad was to be used as a remote support facility, but was not contemplated as a sufficient frac pad to accommodate our e-frac system. So this amended application, we look at it that way, unifies and therefore resolves that condition. In TEP's mind, this amendment is the true posture of the docket as the essence of the development that was already approved. And we're merely modernizing this OGDP to meet our contemporary environmental developments with e-frac, which means bringing in a small amount of disturbance expansion with the Puckett MV1-23. So further, while the director's recommendation is styled as conditional, TEP freely accepts and incorporates that condition head on. We plan on taking soil samples prior to reconstruction of the site and during final reclamation after operations are complete. We're not expecting any elevated levels at this site since the old pit is a freshwater pit, was never used for E&P waste. Unless given the statistical unlikely event of a spill or release occurs during completions, we expect levels to fall below standards at final reclamation as well. Therefore, TEP sees this as a benchmark win-win, not only for surface development, but also for establishing a standard for Piceance frac management. So as with the last hearing, I'll review the lands and the general operational setup really quickly. Then Mr. Kirtland will go over the details of the application. Mr. Tankersley is not presenting for this one, but he is still on board should you have any questions about wildlife avoidance and minimization. And as customary, we thank your staff for their insights and feedback for this OGDP process. None of it ever gets this far without their insight and detailed analysis. Thank you. So again, we're in docket number 2209-00247. TEP
and Mr. Jewell, if I can just interrupt you there, I apologize. I failed to recognize that we have the same panel impaneled here, and that the witnesses remain under the oath that was already taken early. Thank you.
Thank you. The TEP formally requests the ECMC approve an order pursuant to Rule 303 and Rule 503G1 for an approximate 204.5 acre oil and gas development plan, which is already approved for 16 new directional wells and one existing directional well, but now for 2 existing development locations. And that is located in Township 6 South, Range 97 West in sections 23 and 27 in Garfield County, Colorado. The pads will develop minerals from an existing private lease. And as promised, as we said before, in the produced water rulemaking, we will continue to meet our recycled water commitments. Garfield County is a relevant local government with no other municipality in play. This Puckett MV1-23 location has no residential building units or high occupancy units within 2,000 feet of the proposed location. No schools, child care facilities are within 1 mile of the pad. The location is within a DIC, yet no building units within 2,000 feet of the proposed location. The Puckett location is 618 feet from the nearest surface water feature at an estimated depth of groundwater is about 50 feet. BMPs are there to ensure that groundwater threats are minimized to a level of reasonable non-anticipation. TEP has committed to several BMPs to minimize and mitigate potential impacts to public health, safety, and welfare. Some of those include stormwater control maintenance, berm around the entire working pad surface, slope stabilization, including surface roughening, Ready access to spill release equipment, lesser impact exemption for noise and site lighting to promote good neighborliness for our wildlife. And of course, the feature here, the use of our EFRAC fleet. The Puckett MV-123 pad is compliant with the rules regarding wildlife and habitat protection. We're not located, in this case, with any high priority habitat. However, TEP consulted with CPW completed a wildlife protection plan pursuant to Rule 1201A, which was submitted to the Commission as an attachment to Form 2A. So as always, we wouldn't bring one to you without what we believe is 100% rule compliant with our attached plan development with our Forms 2A, B, and C. And most importantly, this application comes before you with no protest or petition, formal or informal. So with that, I will yield to Mr. Kirtland.
Thank you, Mr. Yule. And again, thank you, commissioners, for your time and consideration. Again, I'll be brief. As Mr. Gill stated, this application is a simple amendment to the application you approved in August of 2023, which included drilling 16 new wells from the Arco Deep 127 pad. Today's OGDP application is simply requesting approval to expand the support pad, again, the Puckett MV-123, which is needed to accommodate space for our EFRAC enhanced completion system, which I described earlier in the OGDP. While this is a very simple request, it comes with minor changes in timing related to the overall project. In short, the development schedule had to be delayed a year to accommodate this change. And I just quickly wanted to walk through the changes. Construction on the MV-123 pad was originally scheduled for May of 2025. And under our new schedule, that will be pushed into September of 2025. Drilling on the Arco Deep then was originally scheduled for August of 2024 through November of 2024. And that time is now July of 2025 through November of 2025. Completions from the MV-123 pad, again, which will be utilizing our EFRAC, was originally scheduled for August of 2025 through January of 2026 and will now occur November 2025 to April of 2026. And then reclamation, which was originally scheduled for May of 26, will still occur during that time. Additionally, the expansion of the MV-123 pad and the delay in schedule allowed for some overall project improvement, which includes relocating the temporary surface frac lines down the existing road instead of across country. This is an improvement in the plan and further reduces impacts. And as is customary, which was stated by Mr. Jewell, with the expansion of the MV-123 and the fact that we're bringing forward an OGDP with changes in our schedule, consultation with CPW is imperative. Again, despite the fact that this pad is not located within HPH, as referred to earlier, most, if not all, of our developments have some impact on HPH, regardless of whether or not it falls within HPH. As while consultation was not technically required in this application, we still went forward with that, and we held a pre-application consultation with CPW on June 25th. And through that discussion, confirmed with wildlife folks that there are really no issues with the changes in our development schedule. Particularly, CPW stated that this area has low activity for greater sage grouse, which is the most closest HPH. The nearest greater sage grouse lack buffer is over 2.5 miles from the MV-123 and over 3.5 miles from the Arco Deep 127 pad. However, we remain committed to the best management practices that were approved in the previous OGDP, in addition to the conditions of approval that were outlined in the request through the director's recommendation. And we're excited about the reduced impacts we gain in utilizing our EFRAC system, again, including less traffic with fuel trucks running up and down the road, lower emissions from traffic, as well as the cleaner electric engines that we have in place. Again, this is pretty straightforward in terms of this being a benefit and really being straightforward in terms of adding this pad to an already existing OGDP. Once completion is done, just to stress the timeline, once completions are done on this location, we will fully reclaim this pad. And so that's an important note to make here. I guess with that said, again, we appreciate your time, we appreciate your attention, and obviously are open to any questions and comments at this time. With that, I'll turn it back to Mr. Joel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And that's all I have, Commissioners. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, we'll hand over back to you.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Commissioners, any comments or questions for the operator? Thank you. We'll go ahead and disempanel them. Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. Commissioners, any deliberative comments associated with this application? I see none. I have none either. Is someone willing to come forward with a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the application as presented. I will say that I appreciate the continued efforts towards the utilization of their EFRAC system, and I think that is a technology that they've developed that certainly is best in class for the Western Slope, and really appreciate that their continued utilization of that. And I think this application facilitates that. And so that's my motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Messner. Does that motion, would that also include the 3 COAs that are included in the director's recommendation?
Yeah, it does. And I guess when I say as presented, I assume that automatically incorporates those COAs, but I should be more explicit. So that includes the 3 COAs in the director's recommendation. Yes.
Thank you. I would make the same assumption, but appreciate the clarification. Got a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Cross. Further deliberation? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Well, Commissioners, I believe that is the extent of the thank you to the operators for being here, and appreciate your thought. That concludes our business for today. That's all we have scheduled on our agenda. So I think the only remaining thing is a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I'll second. So we have a motion and a second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. We will see you shortly.